Alrighty, gang. Tim K, Pirate Bait Company coming at you. I'm in the middle of modifying some molds, and I thought I would just flip my camera on quick and kind of take you for a ride as to how I do it and why I do it and all that good stuff. So I kind of already started, so I apologize for that, but I still got enough to do. I can kind of show you how I modify a mold. So this mold is, I think most of you are probably familiar with it. It's called a poison tail jig mold, and I use it for my swim jigs. And I love a lot about this mold. I love the head design. I love the key. I love a lot about it. The one thing, I know that didn't sound like a lot, but trust me, I do. Mostly the head design, and I'll get into that in another video. But the one thing I don't like about it is the hook. So the hook calls for this big old bomber hook, and this is a Gamakatsu 38-24 very wide gap hook. And the reason I don't like it, and let me just show you, I'll put it in the mold here and I'll show you why, is that if you could see if I can do this without poking myself and getting it up there, but you can see where the hook point right here, right there, falls in relation to the weed guard, which is right there. You'll see that it's just very close, if you can see that. And it's constantly getting hung up. So a swim jig, you got to think of it this way. A swim jig is really the square bill of the jig world. So it is designed to be fished through cover and around cover, whether that be grass or laydowns or brush piles. But when you're using a hook of this size, all it does is get snagged. So I love the molds, except for the recommended hook is too big. What I did find, I found another Gamakatsu hook. I don't have the model number here with me. Anyways, you don't want to use it. But you'll see that this is the one that I currently use, and it's a good hook and it fits the mold. However, what I'm concerned about is it's in Gamakatsu form. They make great, I think, finesse hooks. But when it comes down to their meatier, like flipping and pitching and jig hooks, they really don't have the market on that. So anyways, my fear with this hook is that the wire is so thin that it would bend and open up. Now, I've been using it for a couple of years, haven't had a problem. But now that I'm selling these jigs, and I've sold, and it made me think, because I just sent an order to Florida, I'm like, man, if they get a big Florida strain largemouth on this thin wire hook, I'm afraid it might bend open. So I've been in the market for a new style hook. And in terms of flipping and pitching and jig fishing, I think the best hooks on the market are VMC hooks. This is a VMC hook. It is a 7216 BN from VMC. And the reason why I think they're a little thicker wire for one, heavier duty hook, great point. But if you look at it, and I don't know if I can even show you this, if you look at a VMC hook, you'll notice the sides of the hook are flat. And if you know anything about metallurgy or metalworking, the hook has been peened flat to give it additional strength. So you may have heard of peening or shot peening. That's really what it is. So the metal has been flattened out. That gives it extra strength, and it helps retain the hook point as well. But by peening the metal, it really condenses those metal molecules into a very strong but thin wire hook. And that's why I love VMC for anything flipping, pitching, and I want to incorporate this in my jig mold, or my swim jig mold. I already use it for my regular jigs. The problem though, and I'm going to bring it in here so you can kind of really see what I'm talking about. So bear with me a quick second. Let me just get this set up correctly so you can see what's going on here. Get a better feel for what I'm doing. Because I'm sure you don't want to stare at my mug all day. The problem with the VMC hook is that, and I'll go up here. It might be a little tough to see, but the VMC hook, it fits in the mold. Let's see if I can get you in here even a little closer. Oh yeah, there we go. There we go, that might work. So the VMC hook, it fits in the mold. However, if you notice the space back here is very thin versus this side. And the problem I've been having is that the lead is not flowing properly. And as the lead comes in, it hits here and it cools and it creates a big void in this space. And it's because of how tight this hook is to the side of the mold. So what I'm in the process of doing, and I'll show you on this side, is readjusting the position, or I should say adjusting, English, it's one of those tough languages, I know. Adjusting the position of the hook more in this configuration to open up that gap a little bit. And I know it may not sound like much, but that little bit makes a world of difference. So if you can see on this side, and how I do that is I open up this jig, the hole in the mold for the jig eye. And what that allows the hook to do is pivot in the hole, opening of this up a little bit, which will hopefully allow the lead to flow down this side of the hook and not create that void here in the middle. And what I want to do is I want to take you through how I do that, how to modify a jig mold. And there is a couple ways, but I want to take you through the one that I like the best. You can see by the silver here, I've already modified this jig on both sides. And again, I was having the exact same problem. But with that modification, it moves this eye forward and it opens up this gap. So it's more equal on both sides versus before it was virtually closed. So you can see it just opens it up enough to get lead flowing through there. So let me show you what I'm doing. So let me just move you back up a little bit. Sorry about all this. I wasn't really prepared to do this today, but I figured, you know what? I've talked about it a few times, so I'm going to kind of take you through what I'm doing. All right. Put that one there aside. So I've got a Dremel tool. And I have this attachment. You may have seen me use this before on other things. And I modified it slightly by cutting off this side, because the problem I was running into is when I plug this into here, this ring was hitting the hinge. So I had to modify it so I can get it to open up that hole. And you can freehand this, and it's okay, but I do like to use the guard while I'm milling this hole out. The milling bits I use, I got these on Amazon. Where did I put them? Oh, they're right here. And you've seen me show you these before. And there's not even a model name or anything on it. So I'm going to have to go into my Amazon account and figure out what these are, where I got them. But man, they've come in handy on a lot of things. So I'll put that link in this video for these milling bits. But man, they've been fantastic. As you can see, I use them quite a bit. Got a couple that I broke, so I'm going to order a new set. And they're fairly cheap. They're like under 20 bucks. So well worth it. So anyways. So I've got this side already milled out, and what I want to do now is make a mark on this side so I know where to cut. And basically there's no science to it. I just put a hook in here, okay? And I'll take a red Sharpie, and I just kind of color this. And it's not going to be perfect, but it's going to get me to where I need to be. It's going to be close enough. And I just kind of close this over. Give it a smush. And it just makes a little, and you probably can't even see it. It makes a really thin line on this side. And I'm going to try and color this in so maybe you can see it a little better. To give you a reference point of where this hook is. And we'll tweak this in the next step. So I know you might be saying to yourself, well, you got to get those perfectly lined up or the hook won't. Yep, I get all that. And I'll show you how we sort of achieve that in the next step. But right now, all we want to do is kind of mill out this metal, the aluminum, to get that hook positioned in the right position inside of the mold. So let me do that. It's going to get a little loud in here because I'm going to turn this Dremel on. I'm going to take my glasses off so I can see something. And this might be tough to see because of this guard, but I'll stop along the way and kind of show you what I'm doing. Let's see if I can bring it back down here nice and low. That would be good, right? See if I can do it this way to give you a feel for what's going on here. So we're going to be milling out this one. So I've got to get it set this way. And you might be able to see, I'm not sure, get some more light down here. You probably can't see it that well, but I'll stop as I'm going and kind of show you what I'm doing as we go through it. So, because I've got to get this positioned a certain way or I can't mill it. So anyways, let me get to doing this and I'll kind of bring you back in after I got some of it completed here. So let me get this straightened out here. Kind of hoping you can see through this back area here, but I don't think you'll be able to. Anyways, here we go. So when I set this up, basically I don't want to go deeper. I'm just going to open up this circle here a little bit. So when I set this up, I typically will just drop the bit, drop the Dremel, and you can see it's kind of high. So I'm going to just loosen this up and bring this guard down. There we go. And I may adjust it a few times along the way, but that'll give me a good place to start. So again, we'll get this positioned. Let's fire it up and get her going here. It's a little bit high, so I'm going to stop it. I'm going to lower this down again. I'd rather adjust it down lower a few times than take off more metal than I need to. It's not a huge deal if you do. I mean, nothing, we could fix it. Because the next process will fix any of the oopses that we may have along the way. So let's fire this up. Check that real quick. So you might be able to see. We hogged out that hole, removed a bunch of metal. I just want to see where this hook lays. So that actually looks really good. And when I say it looks really good, it's because I'm looking at the gaps here. As you can see, it was over here. There's very little gap. But this allows me to move the pivot that eye a little further this way, and it opens up this gap, excuse me, so that the lead can flow. Now, am I perfectly lined up with this one? Not yet. Not yet. Will we ever be perfect? No, but we're going to be close enough for the girls that we date, as a feller says. So that's going to work. Okay. We're going to go with that. it here. So now that we have those opened up, the next step is going to be, now what do you do? So what I like to do is, so I'll go back and then I will fill that hole in on all my molds with a product called JB Weld 2-part high heat epoxy. So let's get this here mixed up. And you don't need a ton, just need a little bit. And I like this little container because I can just go whoop whoop and put the lid back on. Yeah, as I said, you don't have to modify your molds, but I tried that larger hook, and as I said, I just kept getting snagged on every little branch, stick. And, you know, you're fishing grass beds, you're just bringing in a whole ton of grass with you, and it just wasn't efficient. You know, I switched over that other hook, the other Gamakatsu smaller one, and man, it worked great. It came through cover great, the hookup ratio was great. But as I said, I just became concerned about the diameter of that wire. And I've always been a fan of VMC hooks. They just make, for flipping, pitching, big fish biting, they just make, I think, the best hooks on the market. And I've used them all. Mustad, Eagle Claw, Trocar. Trocar is a good hook too, but it's a little spendy. It's a little pricey, so we'll just get this mixed up. And again, all I want to do is just, I'm going to fill that little divot in. So again, we're just going to put a little bit inside of here. And I'm sure I didn't have that camera set up correctly, so you missed everything I was doing. Just like that. And then we're just going to scrape it across just like that. So now we've got her nice and cleaned up. Let me get a paper towel because I've already got this stuff all over me. As I said, I don't know about you guys, but when I do this stuff, I wear more than I get in the... Just going to do this just to get it looking right and tight. There. The other thing you kind of want to be careful, not that it's a big deal, if you get epoxy down on here, your mold won't close tightly together. So I just look at this to make sure I don't have any weirdo things going on. Alrighty, so as you can see, we've got our jig molds. Our molds are filled in with epoxy. And it's a 1 hour epoxy. So it starts to cure up in about an hour. However, the secret to this epoxy is that this high heat one specifically, and it's the only one I've seen this way, is I can put this in the oven at 250 degrees and it will be fully cured in an hour. Typically, so it'll set up in an hour, but then it takes 24 hours to cure. So here's the thing, I need to pour jigs tonight. So I'm gonna put these in the oven for for 1 hour at 250 degrees, let them cure, and then I'm gonna bring them back and I'm gonna get my Dremel out again. And then we're going to Dremel in this little eye thing back into the mold. And again, it's not a lot of work because you don't need it deep. You just need this to sit in there flush. And you really don't need the line hole. It creates more problems actually than it's worth. So we just want this loop Dremeled out of our epoxy. So let me get these in the oven. At 250 for an hour. I'm going to let them cure up completely in the oven. And then I'm going to bring you back. I'm going to Dremel these out. And then, you know, we're going to go outside and out in the outside shop, and we're going to pour some lead and see how they work. So stick with me. I'll be back in an hour. We'll get these cleaned up, done up, Dremeled up, and then poured up. So hang tight with me. I'll be right back. Okay, we are back. So we've cured our epoxy at 250 for an hour. Now what we're going to do is work on creating this eye hole in the epoxy. So we do that with our Dremel tool. Probably the most tedious part of the whole thing, because again, you don't want to take out all the epoxy you just put in, so you got to go very, very slow, a little bit at a time, fit the hook, and just kind of go back and forth like that. So let me take you through that process, and we'll see how we did. So here we go. Again, we have our guard on. I may end up taking this off. Sometimes it gets in the way a little bit when you're doing this fine detail stuff, but again, I only want to take out a little bit, so I got the bit set really, really shallow. I may even shallow it up some more, just so that we're not taking out a bunch of material. I'd rather start too shallow than too deep, so let's see what we got. Let's give that a shot. I wish there was a way I could position this so you could see what's going on in here. I just don't think there is with this guard on, so I apologize. As you can see, I'm just taking out, nibbling out a little tiny bit at a time here. It's getting me in the ballpark. Take my pen and just put a little mark over here so I know what material has to remain. Give me a rough idea. Alright, I'm gonna drop this down a little, the guard down a little bit more. Basically, I'm using one of the old holes as the depth gauge of how deep I want this one here to be. So we'll set it right there and see how we do. Let's fire it up. Backing that out a little bit so I can see what's going on. All right, let's just keep test fitting. I think we're at the right depth. Now I just got to get more of the material out so that the eye will sit in there. Yeah, that's pretty good. Actually, we'll just do a little more material. Then the trick is going to be getting this side to match with that side. So that's where the fun begins. So let's just get this one set up first. And again, this is just going to be at the first time a really rough fitting. Then we'll continue to kind of tweak it once we start working on that other side especially. A little bit more. So I got my lead heating up also. I'm just dying to see what these are going to look like. So we're going to get this done, and then we're actually going to pour some tonight too. So that'll be good enough for now. Now what I do is, just so I can get a point of reference, is I'll take this red marker and I'll paint the end of this, then I'll close the mold, and it'll leave a little impression over here. And it just gives me a point of reference when I start cutting that other side out. So get that on there fairly heavily. I'm gonna close that over. I don't know if you'll be able to see this on camera, but I'll try and show you. But it leaves just a little, can you see that? I'm not even sure. You can see that little round ring right on there. But it kind of gives me an idea of where this eye is falling in relation to that side. And you can see some of it's up on the aluminum, which is fine, we'll mill that out as we cut here. So let's put that aside. Let's move over to this side and get this roughed out. Again, I'm going to set this depth really shallow here and start there, and then adjust as we need to. So let's just, I don't want it to be full depth. I'll just hold it up a little bit. Yeah, that should be good. Good place to start right there. All right, let's try that. See, I wish I could get you guys in here to see this, but I apologize that this has to be this way. All right, here we go. Oop, where's my on button? Let's see what we got here. Close it one time and just to get a feel for where we are here. I mean, that's not horrible actually. Jeez Louise. And what I'm looking for, there's like that gap in between these two plates. You want, oops, let me put it down here. The gap in between these two plates, you don't want there to be one. And that, for the first time, that closed up pretty tightly. I'm kind of surprised. Kind of surprised you can, if you can't see light through it. I'm kind of shocked actually that happened that well the first time. But let me just, I just want to, well, I think that's pretty darn good. I don't want to get crazy. I'm going to leave it just like that, because if you start, so we're going to leave it just like that, because if you start trying to go too crazy, you end up taking off too much material, then you have more problems than they're worth. So let's start here. Let's pour one. We're not warmed up. Oh, we're getting close to that. Oh yeah. We're plugged up. I got to clean that. So let's put this mold back together. Let's pour one and see what it looks like before we go any further. So get you in here. Let's give it a little. Let's see what we got here. Fingers crossed. Oh shit. I forgot to heat up my mold. God dang it. I mean, it came out sort of good, but I forgot to heat up the mold, so it cooled rather quickly. Let's do it again here. Maybe one of these days I'll get my shit together. All right, here's what we're going to do. We are going to take all right, that is hot. Let's see if we can get her to work this time. think we have a winner. Look at that. I think we have a winner, fellas. Boy, that came out nice. Look at that. We got it trimmed up on the first shot. Super excited about that new hook. All right, so that one's looking good. Let's try the other mold. We're gonna put this back on top so it stays hot. Always heat up your molds. Let me blast this one here. Tell you a little secret with heating. If you heat up your molds with a torch, heat up the bottom down here, because the lead will draw toward the hottest part of the mold. But more hooks out, I'd be all right. This is one I did this before I started recording. So actually I have 3 of these that I've modified. Oh, come on. So 1/4, 3/8, and 1/2 ounce. So that was a 1/2 ounce that I just did. Pretty psyched how that came out. Let's try these other 2. Let's see what we got. Fingers crossed. Here we go. This one here wasn't hot enough. All right, 3/8 looks good. 1/4, I didn't have that hot enough. It didn't pour all the way down. That's okay. It'll get hot. So that actually worked out pretty good. Got a little flashing around the eye. When I say flashing around the eye, I mean right here, this. So I can trim that off, but eventually what I'll do is I will touch up the mold a little bit with some more epoxy to give us a better finish. But for now, we're just going to touch it up like this. And boy, that poured great. Before, as I mentioned, there was a big void down here because the hook was cocked the wrong way and it wasn't getting any lead underneath here. So by making that modification, moving this eye, now I've got a good clean pour around that entire mold. So I'm pretty stoked about that. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to, I've got about 20 of these. I got 21. I'm going to pour 7 of each size. I think that'll fill the order I've got outstanding. So let me get these poured. Then I'm going to bring you back. And I'm pumped up, so I'm going to powder coat. So hang with me. We're going to pour all the rest of these, and then we're going to start powder coating. So stick with me. I'll see you here in a bit soon. Alrighty, gang, we are back. So far we've gone through mold modification. We've poured our jigs, or our swim jigs. Now we're going to do powder coating. Let me give you a quick recap of why we're doing this. So here's my old swim jig. This is looks like maybe a 3/8 or a 1/4 with a 4/0 Gamakatsu hook. As I said, it's a great hook. I love using it. The thing I was a little bit worried about is that, Gamakatsu are typically a thinner wire hook. And sometimes this has a tendency to flex. Not that I think it would ever bend completely open and break, but I didn't want to take a chance. And also, I was always concerned about this gap. I'd always wished it was a little bit larger. Now the hook that this mold recommends, and I'll show you that again real quick, in case you missed it. Oh, that made a great mess. Great, thank you. Is this big mama right here, which, obviously comparing the two, there's no comparison. But this is really too big for a swim jig. yeah, it gives you a great hookup, but you're fishing a swim jig in cover, and all this wants to do is get caught on every branch, every rock, every stump, every piece of cover, so it's not really effective. So that's why I wanted to switch my hooks. What I found though, and what I'm going to go forward with, VMC makes an amazing flipping hook. I use this on my flipping jigs, so I modified our mold to now accept this VMC hook. And just to give you a reference here, let's see if I can do this, not poke myself and sound somewhat intelligent at the same time, that's always a struggle. Anyways, in who's and ways, yeah, I told you I couldn't do it. But to give you a comparison, this is a 4/0 Gamakatsu, 4/0 VMC. And you can see the difference in the wire thickness, the gap. This one's going to give us a much stronger hook, much better hook set, and you'll be able to wrench those fish out of that cover. So I'm in the process of changing over my hooks, and a fella sent me a big order last week, and I said to the guy's name, it's right here, Jim Herbert, this is your order, buddy. I said, hey Jim, give me a couple days. I'd like to send you my upgraded swim jigs with a bigger hook. And he said, fine. So Jim, we're gonna get these poured up, powder coated, we're already poured, powder coated, tied, and sent out to you probably on Monday. I shouldn't see a problem with that. So what I'm gonna take you guys through today is a powder coating process. Now some of you have seen my powder coating setup. I'd run 5 colors at the same time. Today I'm actually going to run 6 colors. I've got about 20 or so heads poured up in 3 different sizes. So I'm going to try and run 6 colors. That'll give us roughly, 3 colors. I'm just picking up these hooks because I just dumped them all off my bench here. They're going to end up on the floor, and my dog is going to step on them, and it's going to be a disaster. So let me just get those out of the way. Clean that mess up later. So as I said, we're going to run six colors, and I'll kind of take you through how I set up my board. We've got laid out back here 5 bins, and I'll put in a couple. Actually, I got 6. There's one over here too, because I said I'm going to run 6 colors, but I can only run 5 at once. And we'll put a few jig heads in each one of these bins adjacent to the powder paint. So what we're going to run today, we're going to run white. And again, these little cups, if you remember from my last video, you take this lid off, and inside of there is your powder paint. So we just want to kind of set this over this valve, leave the lid off. White, and of course, we'll do silver white as our second run. We're going to do black, blue, pearl. And of course, we've got to do magic raw for my bluegill head. And of course, we got to do green pumpkin because green pumpkin is the coolest. And then we're going to run one of my absolute favorites, which I don't get a chance to run a lot, Diablo. I love this color. And I'm glad Jim ordered a couple, so we're going to run these ones. I love running. This is an awesome color. And it's actually a 2-phase process. So you've got your initial powder paint, and then you've got like a top coat, which is like a green color. That's called moss, actually, because it's that sort of green back. Then also, once we run a few of these, we're going to put, this is silver white. So it's white with silver veining. So we're going to run a few of those as well. What I'm trying to do is just get a couple, every color that I offer, get a couple jigs made. So I've got the new ones in stock. So if somebody else orders them, I've got them for you. So anyways, so that's kind of my setup. Then what I do is I take my jigs. So here's these are 1/4 ounce, and I just kind of, I just start by putting in, a couple in each one of these bins. So, ouch. 2 and 2 and then we're going to go 2 of the silver white over here in the back. Got a few left, so we're going to hit some popular colors. White is always a popular color, so we're going to go another white, 2 more whites. We're going to go green pumpkin is always a good one, 2 more of those. 2 more for my bluegill pattern. And then I got 2 left, so we're gonna go 1 black blue, 1 diablo. Silver white, that's fine. We'll get 2 of those. All right. Creates. Do the same thing. So we're gonna go. Oh, actually, you know what? Here, I want to make sure I get this. Nail this one right. So 3/8 for Jim's order. I need 2 specifically for him and green pumpkin. So there's what takes care of Jim's green pumpkins. Everything else I got. Okay. So again, we'll just go 2, 2, 2. Alrighty, so that's kind of how I organize my jigs and my powder paints. Now what I want to do, it's going to get loud in here because I'm going to fire up this compressor and start pumping air into these tubes. Remember from my last video, you want to be sure you have stir sticks ready because you got to stir this, or because remember, the powder paint wants to clump at the bottom of these containers, so you got to stir it off the bottom or you're going to have this big billowing volcano-y action here. So let me plug this in. As I said, it's going to get a little bit loud in here, so I will speak loud. Make sure I get all my goodies. Here's my forceps, stir sticks, my little brushy doodad, and I'll show you how I use that here in a minute. All right, let's roll. Here we go. All right, we'll start cracking these open down here. Again, stir it first because it gets really thick at the bottom. That blue. As you open it more, you have to go back and adjust the tube. Because again, how this works, you got a pump that's pumping air into this manifold, and from the manifold it's blowing air into these containers. So let's get the bluegill going. Give it a quick stir. Oh. Now green pumpkin, this one, my nemesis, it always wants to blow out. Let's see what we can do here. Feel it getting loose. There we go. Man, that made a heck of a mess, huh? Alright, now Diablo, the one I'm excited about. It up first. Now we'll pump some air into it. Oh yeah, there we go. Woo! I like that one. There we go. Alright, man, we are bubbling along nicely here. I love it. Alright, let me show you what we got going on down here. So again, inside of each one of these cups, you've got your powder paint. These cups are called a fluid bed. And basically it takes the powder paint and it turns it into not quite a fluid, but it adds air into the powder, which allows you to get great even coating on your jigs. So one like that will kind of turn it up a little bit. Get her bubbling. There we go. Same thing here. Whoa, got the black and blue going crazy on me. Turn that one down. There we go. So you got to do a few adjustments as you go. For the most part, once you get them set up, they're bubbling along just fine. this is loose, that's why. Ooh, I got a little bit of an issue there. Got some air leakage. Alrighty, so we're good. Let's start powder coating. Again, I got my jig set up in the back, my size, my color. Let's get her going. Alright, so again, we have our forceps. If you haven't seen these, you want to get yourself a pair of these. I like the ones with the curved head on it. It just seems to hold that jig a lot better. So it's going to get louder in here. I'm going to fire up my heat gun. Let that warm up a little bit. Then I think I'm going to start down here with Diablo, because I want to show you how I make this. As I said, it's a two-part color. You start with the fire craw. Then I have this other color called moss. It has like greens and blues in it. I don't know if you can see that well. But it has greens and blues in it. And really all I do is I sprinkle this on with a brush. And I use it for fire craw. I also use it for Tennessee shad. And I'm using one of these little, don't mind the chartreuse on the tip there, I got a little close. And basically I'll show you, I just dip it in and I gently just touch the jig and let it fall in. So let's get one of these fired up. So we'll start with the big old half-ounce bomber. Again, just clamp it in. And you don't want to hold it too long over the heat. You just want it to get hot enough to get the powder paint out of the jar and onto the jig head. The trick though is when you go from like a half-ounce down to a quarter, sometimes you tend to overheat that half-ounce. So that should be fine right there. We'll dip it in, bump it up. Yeah, that coated up nice. Look at that. Wave it on here again. This is where we're going to take our moss color, and we're just going to sprinkle it on top. And all we're doing is just giving a little green top. Man, I'm sorry about my video. I think with this internet thing that's going on today, it's messing with my Wi-Fi. All right. I'm going to take a half-ounce head, or the 3/8 head. We need one of those too. Alright. So this one is similar to Diablo. I'm going to use this moss color. We're going to coat it in white. And then we're going to use that moss on top to kind of break up that back a little bit. There's white. And I'll give you a little secret. So when I talk about timing and how long you leave it on the heat, if this hole is filling in on you, it's too hot. So use that as a gauge. So as I said, if you heat it and dip it in powder paint and the eye fills in, you got it too hot. So back it off the heat a little bit until you can do this and not have that eye fill in on you. So let me put a little heat on the top so I can get that moss back on it. trickiest thing, again, about heating, especially if you're doing multiple sizes, is when you go from a 1/2 ounce down to a 1/4, they obviously heat up at a different rate. And again, let that hook eye be your gauge. If it's filling in when you dip it, it's too hot. So that's, again, that's what it should look like. See how that's still open? So let's put the back on it. Jim, you're in Tennessee, man. You got to tell me if these are the right color for Tennessee shad. So I'd appreciate your feedback, buddy. And judging by the number you ordered, you look like a swim jig guy. So I'd appreciate your feedback on swim jigs. I love them. That takes care of Jim's. Look at it. So this one's going to be green pumpkin camo. This looks like a 1/2 ounce. And I'll use green pumpkin camo for my green pumpkin swim jigs. I use them for perch. That's about it. I used to use them for bluegill, but then I found a better bluegill color. That's a green pumpkin camo. It's just got a little bit of black in it, and when I bake it in the oven, that black will really start to appear. So let's hang that one up here to dry up a little bit. Green pumpkin, this is next color is actually called Blue Craw, and I use it for my bluegill. If you ever look at the head of a male bluegill, it almost looks identical to this. There's somebody that I follow, that probably some of you other guys follow. It's a site called the Slab Lab. You may know Sarah Parvin, but she held up one of her male bluegills one day, and I'm like, oh my God. Gives me a perfect rendering of what a male bluegill head looks like. And again, so it's got that blue, black dot, little bit of green to it, but it's a perfect male bluegill color. So that's what I use for bluegill. Now here's one, it's a new one. This is my black blue pearl. I just got this in because I wasn't happy with my other black and blue. It just wasn't covering well, it wasn't durable, had problems with it. So I sourced this other called Black Blue Pearl. I'm kind of digging it. So again, it's black base with that blue pearl color. It's an awesome, awesome color. Pearl. And let's do the silver white here on the end. So you get a feel for that. Again, it's a white base, and as it cures, silver veins come through. Again, you can see that probably that silver veining starting to come through. I don't know if you can see that or not. The lighting isn't that great. So silver white. And again, I use that for a lot of shad patterns, stuff like that. All right, so here's what we got it going on, guys. So we are I'm gonna unplug this real quick so I can talk to you. That off. Whew. Alrighty, so what I'm going to do, fellers and folks, is I'm going to run the rest of these. I got about, as I said, 20 of each side, so there's 60 total. I'm not going to bore you with that. So I'm going to run the rest of these through powder coat, then I'm going to bring you back and I'll show you the third and final step to powder coating jigs. Actually, it would be the third or the second. I don't know. Anyways, the final step, we'll call it that, to the powder coating process. So stick with me. I'll be back in a second. Let me get these powder coated and then I'll show you the final step. So get a cold snack. I'm going to grab one for myself and I'll meet you back here in a few minutes. Thank you. Ooh, alrighty, fellas, we are back. So as you can see, we've got all of our jigs powder coated. I'm going to take you through the most important part, I think, of any jig, is the baking process. So remember I said when you're putting your jig over your heat gun, the sole purpose of that is to get this powder paint from the cup to the jig head. So you heat this up just to make that transfer. Where the magic happens is when you bake it in the oven. So I bake mine at 250 for 10 minutes, and I do that twice. That ensures that this powder paint is fully cured, giving you the hardest finish possible. If you don't do that, what will happen, this is very brittle in this state, and as soon as you cast it and bounce it off a dock or a rock or a tree or whatever, your powder paint's going to break off. And there's nothing more frustrating than having that happen. And that's really a big reason I got into this. I won't bore you with that story, but I just needed to make a better swim jig and regular jig for that matter. So let me kind of take you through my setup here. So if you saw my other videos, I talked about this rack. So when you're curing these, you use obviously a toaster oven. What a lot of fellows will do is they will take their jig and they'll just hang it off of this rack. What I find happens though, when you start getting a lot of these loaded up on here, they swing and they touch into each other, then they stick together and you're screwed. So the next evolution of that was one fella came up with this idea where you're taking basically two pieces of 1 inch by 1 inch angle with a piece of silicone in between. It's a silicone mat you can buy off of the old Amazon site. And what they would do is they would take their jigs and you would just kind of wedge them in between. And that silicone would hold it up in place and you kind of got this deal going on. The problem that I have with this is if you're doing, you know, these jigs and maybe a flipping jig or something with a bigger hook, like here's my flipping jig with a 5/0 hook. What'll happen, this one, because the hook is small, it becomes really loose and they're falling over. The other thing is you can't get many, you can only fit about, I don't know, 10 or so, 12 in here. And like today, I'm running 60 swim baits, or swim jigs, I'm sorry. So I need to cure a bunch of these at one time. So what I did is I took this concept and created this. And I just put a spring, used the same, basically the same hardware, same track channel-y things, and I put a spring on it. And I stick my jig hooks in the spring, and it kind of ends up looking like, oh, geez Louise, what you see here. So I'm able to run, I don't know, like 40 or so jigs on one of these racks. They hold nice and tight. Then I just take this, put this back, and I just slide the whole deal into my oven. So let's get this one here loaded up quick. Eventually I'm going to convert these over. I know I said this probably a dozen times already. I have the springs. Fella just ain't got time. He's got a lot going on. So let's just get this loaded up. And again, you just kind of pop them in. But I started thinking, like, you know, I'm selling these jigs to, well, this fella here is in Tennessee, but I sold them to the guys in Florida, California, all over the place. And it made me think, well, that Gamakatsu, more of a finesse hook, will that hold up to, you know, an 8 or 10 pound Florida strain largemouth? I don't know, but I know this hook will. So let's get this loaded up. So again, with these two racks, I've probably got, I don't know, 50-ish heads. I kind of lost count, 20, probably close to 60 swim jigs in there. Close her up. And again, I do 250 degrees for 10 minutes, and I do that twice. So I'll do this once, pull them out, let them completely cool, back in 10 minutes, 250 degrees. So let's get this fired up. Put it on bake, 250, and always check your toaster oven, because some it may say 250, but it may get up to 300. This dial is not that accurate, so just be sure you check it. This one I found out is pretty close. This is a Elite Gourmet. I don't know what that one means. I don't even know where I got it. I probably bought it off Amazon. But I like the bigger doors like this, so I can get the racks in easy, the height. If I wanted to, I could put a second rack in there and really load this thing up. But it's a good unit. They're fairly cheap nowadays. So anyways, so hey, I appreciate you hanging out for the ride. We're going to let these bake. I'm not going to bore you with that. But do me a favor, hit that subscribe button for me. I mean, the channel has grown substantial over the last month, and I greatly appreciate that. And if you're interested in these baits, go to piratebaitcompany.com. Thank you guys for your order. And I'm good. This is actually, as I said, oops, over there. This is for a gentleman that ordered a whole bunch of stuff up from me. Thank you for that. Thank everybody else for their orders. But like, subscribe, share it with a friend, and stop by and check me out. So let this cook, and I'll see you in the next one. So thank you very much.